The following is an Infinity One Productions presentation, keeping it honest, insightful, interactive.
Coming up next on the YouTube edition of the RCWR show, we take a look back at what all you might have missed from tonight's WWE Raw as the tone was set for the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view that's going to be coming our way this Sunday. It was an episode where The Rock had made his return to confront CM Punk. Also, we saw the return of a WWE legend. It was an episode of biblical proportions that met a little bit of immigrant reform, if you will. It's the RCWR show, and it begins right now.
Covering the latest in wrestling and beyond. You're listening to the RCWR show with your host, Lee Sanders.
Welcoming you to the YouTube edition of the RCWR show. I am, of course, as always, the Black Avenger, Lee Sanders. Thank you so much for checking out tonight's episode on YouTube on February 11th, 2013. We are just a couple of minutes removed past tonight's WWE Raw, where the tone was set for the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view that's going to be coming our way live this Sunday. Folks, those of you that's checking out this episode right now, after you're done, feel free to leave a comment, especially those of you that had saw tonight's episode of Raw. And we'll actually read some of your comments live on the air this Tuesday night at 11 p.m. Eastern for our Wrestling Report edition of the RCWR show. Join me and Diamond K as we go more in depth about key points that happened from tonight's Raw with the very latest in wrestling related news and beyond. You'll be able to catch that on blogtalkradio.com/the RCWR show. For now, let's go over tonight's fallout from WWE Raw, where one of the main questions that was on the minds of a lot of folks going into the Elimination pay-per-view this week was, well, who are the final contestants going to be to get it on in that Elimination Chamber match to win a coveted spot at facing the World Heavyweight Champion at WrestleMania? And so far, the only names that we had at this point was Mark Henry, Randy Orton, and Daniel Bryan. So for those of you keeping track at home, 3 more spots needed to be filled. Now, we would see those spots get filled up tonight. We would also see Paul Heyman kick things off with a shocking announcement, folks, as Paul Heyman had turned in his resignation as a result of the way Mr. McMahon has been coming down on him, implicating him as being the one behind the activities of Brad Maddox and the Shields, Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman being the mastermind behind those guys, helping CM Punk be able to retain his title at a few pay-per-view matches. Well, we would see Heyman try to divert everything that was going on with him and turn it into a positive spin, if you will, saying that CM Punk did not need these type of distractions, and that furthermore, by removing himself from CM Punk, Punk would be able to focus on his match against The Rock at Sunday's pay-per-view and go on, no doubt, to become the WWE Champion once again, thus continuing his impressive reign of 455 plus days as champion. Now, CM Punk, he would not take CM Punk's resignation. No. We would actually see CM Punk confront Paul Heyman, ask him if this is something that he really wanted to do and to not do it, as there are a lot of Paul Heyman fans that appreciate him and the hard work that he does day in and day out. And he also told him that he needs him at his side to be rooting him on when he takes on The Rock this Sunday. After a little bit of convincing, we finally see Paul Heyman embrace the idea of Punk beating Dwayne The Rock Johnson and continuing to be at his side. And we see the two of them hug. Bear in mind, we saw a very opened Paul Heyman admit that he looked at Punk more than just a friend. He looked at him as someone that he has a lot of respect for and great admiration, as we actually saw a hug out moment between these two guys. It was definitely one that had Twilight proportions, if you will, and we want to remember that because The Rock would be bringing that movie up later on in the night and describing these two guys hugging it out in the middle of the ring. It was more than Kane and Daniel Bryan getting it on. Seriously, only thing I was missing was the colorful rainbows and the Queen, "You're My Best Friend" playing in the background while these two men were hugging it out. So it looked as if Paul Heyman on this night would retract his resignation letter. But you got to keep in the back of your mind here that the WWE chairman, Vince Kennedy McMahon, should be returning momentarily. He had successful hip surgery after getting F5'd by Brock Lesnar 2 weeks ago. Speaking of the WWE chairman, he did make a little bit of a brief cameo, as after all this hugging out had went down between the ECW former owner and the former WWE champion, we actually saw Heyman talk to Vicky Guerrero in a backstage segment wanting to add a certain stipulation to the CM Punk versus Rock match. Well, Vince McMahon, of all people, would actually call Vicky Guerrero. Turns out Mr. McMahon was watching this, perhaps maybe in the privacy of his own home or maybe at the hospital. He was put on speaker, and we did get to hear the chairman as he wanted to know what it was that Paul Heyman wanted. What stipulation did he have in mind? Paul Heyman would go on record saying that he wanted nothing more than for the stipulation to be added. And this is the stipulation, folks. Should The Rock receive a countout or a disqualification, then the title should be able to change hands. Vince McMahon would grant this, which just creates a very interesting stipulation. It definitely kind of shakes things up for a lot of fans. Now, a lot of fans, when they first heard this, they looked at it as a clear cut, well, CM Punk is definitely going to win. This is just stupid. Why are we being told the results pretty much right here and now? Folks, I think there's going to be a little bit more to this. I don't think it's going to be as clear cut as some of you all are portraying it to be. And for you guys on YouTube, our YouTube subscribers in particular, we're actually going to be having a very special Call That Match edition of the RCWR show, which you'll be able to check out Tuesday night. The episode will be available 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern, so make sure that you check it out. It's one that you don't want to miss. I'm going to be tying up some loose ends with how this pay-per-view is going to be playing out by offering match predictions and offer who I think is going to be walking away victorious from Sunday's pay-per-view. Feel free to share your comments, your match predictions, and if you're on point, we'll show you some love on a live edition episode of the RCWR Post Show that's going to be coming up this Sunday at 11 p.m. Eastern. So, let's continue on with the latest WWE Raw results, where we also saw Big Show just be on a serious warpath. Now, footage was shown from earlier in the day of Big Show arriving at the arena and eavesdropping on a conversation that Alex Riley had with Yoshitatsu. Both men were laughing over the fact that Big Show's tour bus had got destroyed by Del Rio and he was drenched with a bucket of paint. Big Show would give a WMD to both men. This would later be followed up by an interview that he was supposed to have with Matt Striker. Matt Striker, unfortunately, though, wasn't even able to get his question out there, as Big Show gave him a WMD as well. Now, we would end up seeing Big Show pull a page out of his former tag team partner and six-time World Heavyweight Champion Chris Jericho's playbook by giving the silent treatment when he grabbed the microphone. Each time as it looked as if he was getting ready to say something, Big Show just came up very short. He would leave the ring very frustrated, folks. We also saw the Shields, Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, break their silence as they had wanted to get a piece of Ryback, Sheamus, John Cena. They did not forget about that brutal attack that they had suffered at the hands of those men on last week's Raw. But they would passionately also give a statement to John Cena, letting him know that despite the beating that they took last week, with the help from the entire WWE roster, John Cena and crew did not get the job done, as they are still standing, and basically telling John Cena that once again he has failed, just as he has done his entire wrestling career. They deem his 10 years in the WWE as nothing more than a failure, and they are not pleased with the fact that he is bringing up a generation of wrestlers like Ryback, like Sheamus, that follow in the same path as he does. And basically, they are looking to destroy everything that he has represented in 10 years on one night, this Sunday night at Elimination Chamber. The men, they called them out, but they did not get anything. Once again, we would see the lights go dim, and it would be dim for about 10 seconds. When resumed, we would actually see the Shield members be attacked by Ryback, Sheamus, and John Cena. And this attack would blend into the audience, where Shield members were able to escape them and literally ran out of the arena. So could this really be a case right here where the Shield could be seeing their final days in WWE? Well, this pay-per-view coming up this Sunday will tell a huge story, especially the night after Elimination Chamber. Let's talk about some of the matches that we had got tonight, as we had saw Mark Henry continue his Hall of Pain induction as he had defeated Great Khali. Remember, shockingly, Mark Henry made his return last week to lay out the Punjabi Nightmare. This path of destruction would also lead into Mark Henry destroying Rey Mysterio, Sin Cara, Daniel Bryan. And let's just back up for a second. Mark Henry had actually took out Great Khali on last week's SmackDown, and that's how we ended up getting this rematch, if you will, tonight between these two men, as Khali wanted to try to get a little bit of retribution, but Khali unsuccessful. Mark Henry looking damn impressive tonight. You know, he also did something that I thought was pretty hilarious post-match. He also gave a World's Strongest Slam to Hornswoggle, another person inducted into his Hall of Pain of Destruction. Bear in mind that Randy Orton is going to be having a rematch with Mark Henry this Friday night on SmackDown. Remember, just last Friday night, Mark Henry had defeated the Viper to be able to advance into the Elimination Chamber match to become possibly the number one contender to take on the champion at WrestleMania. Other matches that we saw, we got a great 5-star quality type of match in Chris Jericho, as he had defeated Daniel Bryan. Now, this was a case right here where Chris Jericho ended up talking to Teddy Long and Booker T, wanting in on the World Heavyweight Championship match at Elimination Chamber, pointing out that he has been a world champion 6 times, and he has the most current record, a damn impressive record at that, of having the most Elimination Chamber appearances. Well, Theodore Long, he automatically wanted to put him in the match, but Booker T had other plans, as he wanted him, just like all the other contestants, to earn the spot. And earn the spot Chris Jericho was able to do in this really great classic matchup. Chris Jericho's been back for a couple of weeks now, and the crowd support for him has just been explosive. It's been better than ever. Fans want to root on a babyface Chris Jericho. Let's really hope that this continues, because we know that there's those rumblings out there that Chris Jericho could possibly be going could be going heel, to be having a feud with Ryback. I'm really hoping it doesn't end up that way, because the crowd is just really eating up Chris Jericho right now. He is having a more impressive run than what he did the last go-round with the whole silent treatment, end of the world as you know it routine. We also saw John Cena, Sheamus, and Ryback defeat the three-man bands, Heath Slater, Jinder Mahal, and Drew McIntyre. Main question going into this particular six-man tag match was whether or not Sheamus, Ryback, John Cena would be able to get along. This was pretty much a preview of what to expect in their match against The Shield this Sunday, and all three of these men, they definitely seem to be on the same page. This does not look like a case where it's one man for themselves. They really clicked pretty well in this contest. I love the sweet spot that they had put in this match where Cena, Sheamus, Ryback, they all had their guys over their shoulder. Sheamus, he delivered white noise to his guy. John Cena delivered the attitude adjustment. Ryback delivered shell shock. Really, really fucking sweet spot right there. One of the best spots of the whole night. Jack Swagger had defeated Zack Ryder in a squash match in order to advance into the World Heavyweight Chamber spot match at Elimination Chamber. Number one contender match for those of you keeping track. I don't mean to confuse you guys. Hopefully you aren't being confused when I keep throwing it out there. Let's just call it the Elimination Chamber WHC number one contender spot. Or you guys will just know what I'm talking about. All right. And surprisingly, we saw the return of a WWE legend. Now, a lot of people were trying to figure out who the hell is this guy that we're seeing right here. I thought it was Lou Albano for a second there. I mean, he looked just like him there, just minus a haircut. But they kept the camera on him a little bit long enough, and you hear Michael Cole, Jerry Lawler, they're trying to sell this guy, but the only thing they were able to tell us was that this is Zed Colbert. Now, you got to do a little bit of homework, and this guy is actually Dutch Mantell. Now, he's a former professional wrestler, author, and he is known by that ring name that I just gave, Dutch Mantell. And he's somewhat semi-retired, but he makes occasional wrestling appearances. And he previously had worked for TNA as a writer behind the scenes. And he is, in fact, a Vietnam veteran. Now, we saw him give a very interesting promo to the WWE Universe post-match after Jack Swagger had won. And we see this guy say that there are just so many problems with America right now that he sees faces, people of different ethnic backgrounds that he just doesn't understand. He doesn't understand why they're in the country. He hears languages that he can't understand, that he doesn't know. And he cites that there is a huge problem that is happening in this country right now. And he doesn't like the way of the direction that the company is going. And he points out that there are so many people crossing over the borders that it shouldn't be allowed, that basically there should be more stricter laws. And we see him say that he and Jack Swagger's dad are both Vietnam veterans and that they will be righting the wrong that is happening in America. This was definitely an eyebrow-raising moment right here that just kind of had a lot of folks go, what the hell are we watching right here? And this just fits so perfectly into what is going on currently right now with President Obama, as one of the main things that he has to take on right now, on top of gun reform, is trying to enforce more stricter immigration laws, try to get those borders cleaned up from people that just continue to cross over into the country illegally. This is definitely a very sensitive subject right now. And when I saw this particular segment play out, all I could think about was the Iron Sheik and Sergeant Slaughter. Just remembering when Sergeant Slaughter had that really great heel turn back in the heyday, and it led to him becoming the WWF champion there. I was just having shades of that moment, and I'm just saying to myself, if this is played right, this could really be one hell of a push for Jack Swagger. It's obvious that the WWE, upper creative, they have big plans for this guy. I like his new look, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe I heard Jack Swagger be called the Angry American, not the All-American American. I believe I heard him called the Angry American. I could be wrong, but if I am wrong, I really think that's the best way to go right now, because he really is coming off like an angry American, quite honestly. But once again, Dutch Mantel making his return. And we should let you know that it was back in 2003 that Mantel had began working as a scenes writer, producer, and agent for TNA. And this was right before he became a full-time member of the booking team, which at the time included Vince Russo and Jeff Jarrett. And he had some pretty great successful moments with the company, most notably with the TNA Knockouts division, as that alone had reinvigorated interest into the women's wrestling in the United States. And he was also given credit for bringing in Awesome Kong to the company. So, you know, he definitely has some pretty great moments right here. Now, he left TNA due to creative differences, and he began working as a writer for IWA in Puerto Rico. So he's been doing a little bit of stuff at independent promotions for the past couple of years. Nice to see him come on back into the WWE here. So that gives you a little bit more insight about this man. And so far, he's managed Justin Bradshaw, Steve Corneo, Eli Blue, Jacob Blue, The Undertaker, Sting, Ultimate Warrior, Kane, just to name a few guys there. All right, and in other matches, we saw The Miz defeat Cody Rhodes in a disqualification match. Now, this was the result of Antonio Cesaro being at ringside watching Miz take on Cody Rhodes. Action had went outside of the ring, where Miz decided to get in a cheap shot on Cesaro. Cesaro would respond right back by attacking Miz, and that's how this match was pretty much thrown out, given to Miz for the win right here. These men definitely are not done, not by a long shot, because could this be a case right here where we can see possibly both of these two men get it on in another YouTube pre-show match, or possibly at Elimination Chamber for the United States title? Who knows? But I mean, at this point, like I said several weeks ago, you might as well just have this rivalry somewhat conclude at WrestleMania, with The Miz becoming the new United States champion. Sixth match, we saw Tensai and Brodus Clay defeat Primo and Epico. Seventh match, we saw Alberto Del Rio pick up a win over the intellectual savior Damian Sandow. Wade Barrett, despite being weakened by Bo Dallas, who did not forget the attack that he suffered at the hands of Barrett 2 weeks ago on SmackDown, was able to pick up an impressive win over Kofi Kingston. Remember, it was back on December 31st that Wade Barrett had become the new Intercontinental Champion. Kofi Kingston was looking for a little bit of redemption here, as he was looking for a victory to somehow maybe catapult him to becoming a #1 contender to take on Barrett for the title. But nice to know that they are keeping Bo Dallas in the loop there. Looks like those two men are not done just yet. Could that possibly be a YouTube pre-show match? Only time will tell. I would suspect that maybe no later than Wednesday or Thursday, we should know what will be the YouTube pre-show. Kane had picked up a win over Dolph Ziggler to be able to advance to that Elimination Chamber match for that #1 contender spot to face the World Heavyweight Champion at WrestleMania. Now, this was the result of Dolph Ziggler talking to SmackDown GM Booker T and not liking the fact that Chris Jericho, a man that he defeated and had removed from the company last year, has been able to return and is in the Elimination Chamber match. And he basically wanted in on this match to be able to eliminate Chris Jericho once and for all. And Booker T, he did grant it to him. Keep in mind, Dolph Ziggler is still the Money in the Bank briefcase winner right here. Well, damn impressive match that we actually saw between Dolph Ziggler and Kane. Dolph Ziggler, you got to give him a lot of credit here, because Kane is one big dude. He really made him look pretty damn good tonight. but it just was not enough. AJ Lee, she tried to help Dolph Ziggler out, caused a little bit of a distraction as she had got on the ropes. We see that Dolph Ziggler, he gets Irish whipped into the side of the ropes that AJ was on. She got bumped off, but luckily Big E Langston had caught her midair. They just have to figure out a way to try to write some type of a spot where Big E Langston is just able to pick people in midair here. This is like the fourth time we've seen this. First time, second time was okay, but now it's just getting a little bit too played out. We saw Dolph Ziggler be very concerned, wondering if AJ Lee was okay, and as soon as he turned around to focus on Kane, Kane just took him out with a devastating choke slam right there to be able to advance. Now you have a lot of people wondering, what does this mean for Dolph Ziggler? Are we still going to possibly get an appearance from him at this Sunday's pay-per-view? Hey, anything can happen right here, folks. It should be very interesting to see what could go down. At this point, it is really looking at as though WrestleMania could be the moment for Dolph Ziggler to finally cash in that Money in the Bank briefcase. I think the way that this is looking right now, whoever ends up taking on Alberto Del Rio for that World Heavyweight title, I truly believe that Dolph Ziggler is going to be looking to cash in the briefcase afterwards to become the first man in history to cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase at WrestleMania and become a new champion. I think this is the way that the writers are trying to go right now at this point. I would really be shocked if we were crowned a new World Heavyweight champion in Dolph Ziggler at this Sunday's pay-per-view. And it was the night that everybody was waiting for. It was the return of the new WWE champion, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who revealed that WWE Raw, they sold out the arena that they were in tonight at Nashville, Tennessee. Rock telling one funny-ass story about how he used to be a teenager that had went to a bar, and the fans were just really interacting with him because they wanted to know if it was maybe Jeff Jarrett that he was drinking with. And he said, no, it wasn't Jeff Jarrett. Basically, he was with Downtown Bruno having a few drinks when all of a sudden a crackhead had came in and offered to sell a 1977 Blue Thunder car for $70. And Rocky was the only one that jumped at it and wanted to buy it. He gave the guy $45 and promised him he'd give him the rest of the money. Just let him go drive home, pick up the rest. He'd bring it to him. So he basically hustled a crackhead. And he revealed that as he was driving down the street, he heard a little bit of rattling happening in the back. Apparently, the crackhead had a friend that was sleeping in the back of the car. Rock had kicked that person out, continued to drive. Then he kind of realized that the car may be hot. So he did what probably anybody would have done. He dropped it off in the middle of a parking lot at Burger King, took his ass back to the bar to get his drink on. And this was just really fun. He really had the crowd just invested in everything that he was saying. They were really, really in the palm of his hands on this night. One of the biggest highlights of the whole night, biggest pops of the whole night, aside from Chris Jericho having a damn good match with Daniel Bryan. Now, we saw things turn serious when CM Punk had came out, and The Rock would answer the question that had been on a lot of people's minds, which was how is he going to respond to the new stipulation being added for his match with Punk for that title. Rock saying it doesn't matter, just bring it, and he's still going to beat CM Punk's punk ass at Sunday's pay-per-view, and he actually wanted to get a piece of him tonight. We see CM Punk and Paul Heyman thinking about it. They decided that they didn't want a piece of him, but we quickly saw CM Punk enter the ring to brawl briefly with the People's Champion. And just as it was looking as The Rock was getting the upper hand, getting ready to set him up for the People's Elbow, Paul Heyman would intervene, grab The Rock by the ankle, and trip him up. And this was a perfect setup for CM Punk right here, who was able to connect with the devastating GTS, lay out The Rock, grabbed the WWE title and had some very interesting words to close out tonight's episode of WWE Raw, which was basically, Rock, you can bring it every single time you want, but when you bring it, I'm just going to take it. And that was pretty much the way Raw ended tonight. Overall, a pretty decent episode of WWE Raw that we had got. Surprisingly, there was no Divas action on here. We didn't get any Divas match. Truly a weird moment right here, especially considering the great tag match that the Funkadelics had on Main Event last week. I believe it was against Asuka and Tamina. This was definitely a kind of a weird night right here to not see any Divas action. Keep in mind, we do have a new, somewhat still new, WWE Divas champion. Pretty weird right here, but overall it was definitely a decent episode of Raw. It did properly build up the Elimination Chamber, but we should mind you guys that WWE, they did not even dedicate a segment of the show to really talk about the matches that we're going to be seeing at Elimination Chamber this Sunday. Now, we want to just hook you guys up, and you know how we do it over here with regards to our coverage of all the matches that's going to be coming up. So let's kick it up from the very top, get you guys updated on the current card as it stands. And remember, folks, the card is subject to change. Any more matches that are going to be added before this Sunday comes, definitely will keep you updated, and you can be updated by going to our website at InfinityOneProductions.com. You can also check out our latest tweets at Infinity1Prod, and we also post updates on Facebook at Infinity1 Productions. Current Elimination Chamber matches are as follows. The Shields, Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins. They will be taking on Ryback, John Cena, and Sheamus in a 6-man tag match. Jack Swagger will be facing Chris Jericho, Daniel Bryan, Kane, Mark Henry, Randy Orton in a Elimination Chamber match to determine the number one contender for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 29. Alberto Del Rio will be facing The Big Show in a singles match for the World Heavyweight Championship. And in the main event for the pay-per-view, The Rock will be defending his WWE title against CM Punk. And remember that stipulation there, folks. If The Rock gets a disqualification or a countout, then CM Punk will be crowned the new WWE champion. So there you have it, folks. Now, make sure that you join us this Tuesday night at 11 p.m. Eastern for our Wrestling Report edition of the RCWR show. Join me and join Diamond K. We're going to be going more in depth about key points that had happened from tonight's episode of WWE Raw. One of the key points that we're going to be bringing up is what Dutch Mantle had to say and how realistic it is when compared to some of the things that is happening in America today. We're going to go more in depth about it. Put the question out there, is it a little bit too risque for the WWE audience right now? We'll also go more in depth about the controversial tweets that had came out from CM Punk earlier today as he took aim at Pope Benedict. That's right, in case you might have missed it, CM Punk had called the Pope a Nazi. And we definitely want to go more in depth about that. Now, to get you guys' minds jogged up on what all had went down with CM Punk's in his tweets, we do have a video that was posted earlier on our YouTube channel. Go backtrack, check that out, and definitely feel free to share your comments. Some folks have already turned in their comments. We'll follow up on a few more Tuesday night at 11 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you check it out. It's going to be at blogtalkradio.com/the RCWR show. And hey, if you're not able to catch our show live in progress, you can check it out on the downloads in the iTunes, Zune, and Stitcher marketplaces. Just use the keywords, the RCWR show. Quick programming note, this Saturday, February 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have the one and the only recently announced future inductee into the 2013 Hall of Fame and two-time WWF champion, one of the longest champions in the history of professional wrestling, Mr. Bruno Sammartino, is going to be stopping by the show. We're going to be asking him some very interesting questions. It's going to be a pretty kick-ass interview. Make sure you join us for that. You don't want to miss it. If you have any questions you'd like for us to ask Mr. Bruno, feel free to leave us a comment either on our YouTube channel or hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, as we'll be selecting a handful of questions to read to Mr. Bruno as we have him as our special guest for a limited time. So make sure you check that out this Saturday. One other quick programming note for you TNA wrestling fans. This Thursday night, we will not have Impact Showdown Radio live on Blog Talk Radio. However, it will be a YouTube exclusive this week only. So make sure that you check it out. YouTube exclusive only. The episode will be available for your listening pleasure at 11 p.m. Eastern. So make sure that you check that out. All right, folks, that is going to do it. In the meantime, let us know what you had thought about tonight's WWE Raw. And if you enjoyed our coverage of tonight's show, feel free to comment and subscribe so that you never miss out as we post a lot of exclusive goodies from time to time. Thank you so much for checking out this YouTube edition of the RCWR show. I'm the Black Avenger, aka the Black Azrael, Lee Sanders, wishing you all to be safe and be kind to one another, folks. We will see you Tuesday night at 11 p.m. Eastern for the Wrestling Report edition of the RCWR show. Everybody, take care.